Hi, everyone. Welcome to Carolyn Talks. I'm your host, Carolyn. Hi. So this is the podcast / YouTube channel where I talk to film creatives about their work in the industry and what inspires them. And today I am joined by documentarian and filmmaker Julia Jansch to talk about her new short film, Elsa, which is premiering at the 2022 Tribeca Film Festival. And I'm so happy to have Julia to talk with me today about this film because it's very interesting and it's about it's a subject about, I think, with regards to how social media can actually affect people. And the subject is Elsa Majimbo, who became famous for being a social media sensation. And I will admit, I actually did not know who Elsa was before I even signed up to do Tribeca, and I saw the film description, and that's what interested me. I'm like, oh, I didn't know who this person is, but I was just interested because I think the whole idea of a social media star as social media sensation is something that we never even really thought of 10 years ago. And it's just become this massive thing. It's a whole industry for one, but it's just getting to know the people. You have to wonder if so much of their lives is becoming content. And in your film for Elsa, she shows who her personality is as a social media star, or her as a comedian, because that's what she does. She's comedy, but you do give time for her to show the more vulnerable side of her and the things that bring her down. But so much of her personality is trying to stay upbeat. So for you, what was it that attracted you to and made you say, I want to make a film about Elsa? And what was it about her in these in the ups and the down moments that made you say, this is what I want to make this film about?
Yeah, first of all, Elsa, I've never seen anything like it in my life before. And I discovered Elsa while lying in bed during the pandemic lockdown with nowhere to go. And just, scrolling through internet and scrolling through Instagram. And what inspired me about her was that here's this girl who's just lying in her bed, chewing on chips, just in her own intimate environment, speaking her mind and saying all the things that we, think about, but we don't say because of social cues, because of, wanting to appear a certain way, look a certain way. And her realness was so beautiful and so inspiring and so unusual, to be honest, because if you look at, she's not a kid, but if you look at young women, and especially young women who rise to fame on your social media channels, there's so much manufacturing going on, and filtering and perfecting and being a certain way. And the fact that she was just getting so much laughter and attraction for being unashamedly herself, no shame, literally. I thought, wow, how refreshing. And, as someone who spent a lot of my early 20s and even up to my 30s, trying to kind of reflect back what I thought, boys wanted to see or people wanted to see, or trying to kind of, wear a mask in a lot of, she also talks about how she's had to wear a mask. Mm-hmm. It was medicine to me. And I think it's medicine to the youth. And I think it's what the youth needs to do and be inspired by. And the fact that Elsa calls herself an icon is very interesting, because when you think of the word icon, you don't usually think of someone lying in their bed just saying what they think. And you think of something very manufactured. But she's calling herself an icon for being totally real. And I thought that was so beautiful. It's funny how there's an inherent, actually, Mohammed Kia, who's her manager, we also had a lot of chats in the early days. And, when we talked about this word icon, there's the word con and icon, because you're conning someone essentially with what you're trying to project to the world. And she's not conning anyone. She is who she is, and that's it. And I love that.
And the thing is, I'm I also can't join us today because she's not feeling well. But the thing that I found really interesting about this film, and like I love that you actually bring it back the word con is in icon, because like so much of social media now is about presenting a facade, about trying to present the best you or who you think people believe is the best version of you. And like just looking at her videos, like her hair isn't like done perfectly, she's not wearing any makeup, she's just like usually wearing regular t-shirts, eating potato chips, and just like wearing these just like random shades. And like she's gotten famous for being herself, and as you said, and as unashamedly herself. And in the film, like who you see is who you get. That's exactly who she is. But it's also interesting that the film starts out with her getting body paint, and the body paint is being done by Laulo Sembajo, and it's about you're being covered in paint, but in the act of being painted, like she's revealing her true self. So I kind of like that juxtaposition of where she got famous by just bearing it all and just being herself, whereas but she's like there's a line like close to the end where she says like she feels like she's back home again while she's being painted. So I think that's such an interesting concept of her, and how she believes being wearing a mask is like, if for her wearing a mask is like almost to me almost like being herself, but not truly, because she still can't be as vulnerable, because she's still her job is to be a comedian, is to be funny. So for you, while you were making the film, like what kind of discussions did you have about the moments where she was just like being extremely vulnerable and revealing all the hurt that comes, because like she talks about being cyberbullied, and also about the disapproval from her family and her brother, where they were like, you're not fully like you're embarrassing us, and you're embarrassing yourself by doing this. And she's like, I'm just being me. So what kind of conversations did you have with her throughout the filming of this?
Those conversations happened way before we started filming, because when I got intrigued by Elsa and started talking to her and started thinking about, well, what does the documentary look like of Elsa? As a documentary filmmaker, you want to know the full person. So there's always something else. There's always something more. There's always something deeper. And Elsa did talk to me before we rolled camera, way before, about this backlash to being unashamedly herself. And she mentioned the things, not in as much emotion as she does, when we rolled camera, which was great. But she spoke about how it hasn't always been the easiest to be this version of herself. And just back to what you're saying about the body painting, Lalu, who's an incredibly prolific thought leader. I mean, he's actually done a TED talk, and he's an artist of our times. And he in the film talks about the three parts to the essence of who we are, Uri, the three Uris. And he talks about how we're the people we are when no one's looking is the first part of our essence. And then the next part is the people we are when everyone's looking. And then the third part is our divine purpose, our light, our true selves. And I structured the film in 3 acts according to basically Lalu's thematic statement for the film. Because the first 2 acts deal with the first 2 parts of Elsa, but she actually showed the world who she is when no one's looking, and found comedy in that. But the third part of the film is her essence. And her essence is that she has been able to find her purpose through being herself, and actually showing people that. And so that whole scene and all that footage around Elsa and the body paint and coming to her own, for me, that's almost metaphorical in a way. That's pointing to that third Uri. That's pointing to her purpose, her essence, just like you picked up upon. I feel home again. We're at home and we're our true selves.
So much of social media is about projecting this facade, and it's about looking perfect. And like she's gotten where she is by being herself. Right. And I think that's such a powerful thing, because like she's not going to be using the filters, she's not wearing all of the makeup, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's just like she's, especially I think also as a dark-skinned Black woman, like she's opening up herself to so much. Unfortunately, like the world does, like colorism is a thing, and like Black skin and like dark-skinned Black women do face so much prejudice and so much, I guess you could say, discouragement from the world and from society, especially if on social media, like we're judged for the slightest thing. So like, just like watching her be who she is, and she's like, I'm embracing this, and she's gotten so much, I think like people will say, okay, she's gotten like famous and she's gotten things like the endorsements from like Fenty Beauty and Valentino, but like hearing her speak, to her that's just accidental. That was not her goal. Like getting getting this kind of fame is not her goal. It's just about her just wanting to do what she wants to do. She's still gonna be herself with or without these endorsements. So for like, as a filmmaker, like capturing these specific moments, because I sometimes, as they're saying, people are saying things, you're just like, this is the moment I'm going to use in the film. Like for those kind of moments, like when they happen, did you realize what she was saying as she was saying them, or just like when you were in the editing process?
No, I think it was all very much about the real-time shared experience. Obviously in the edit, you choose what to put where. But it was interesting because we actually shot the film in the chronology of what you watch on screen.
Okay.
Which we saw the surface, we saw the deeper wound, and then we went and kind of spoke about purpose, and there was actually, it was a 2-day shoot, and that was the next day with Lalu. But just picking up on what you were saying about being endorsed by Valentino and Fendi, I think all those brands are actually endorsing. She's beautiful. I mean, you put makeup on Elsa and a dress, she looks like any fashion model, but I actually think they're endorsing the real, what they first saw and what they first fell in love with, as this just kind of very raw, this is me, this is, and I think Elsa says it so well in the film. She says, I'm inviting you into my space. I'm not going into your space. With social media, because I have my phone right here in my bedroom, in my bed, you're being invited into my space, and you take what you get.
Yeah, she hasn't changed who she is, because there's some people, like once they get famous, others expect them to like conform to this idea of being like proper. And of course they'd be like, oh, you're representing Valentino Fendi, so you need to act a certain way. Always make sure you look a certain way. Always make sure you say specific things. And I kind of relate to that, because like even as a film critic, because so much of what I do is public facing, when I read my reviews, I do think, like, I do wonder, like, are people thinking that I'm being too harsh or too critical? Like when I'm on social media, when I'm on Twitter, especially, I'm very opinionated. I always like, I've been told like, okay, maybe like pull it back and you don't have to like comment on everything. And like, I do think about that, but like, even just watching her, I'm like, she's 20 years old. She's young. She's a baby compared to my age anyway. And I'm just like, she has so much confidence that like even women my age working in this industry still struggle with, because we're just thinking, should we say everything that we want to say, and then you're just thinking, but why should we be afraid to say what we think is right? Like, why should we be afraid to voice our opinions? Why should we be afraid to be who we are? But she's like,
there are no what ifs. She just says it like it is. Exactly.
And I just think like especially because I'm 38, and like just watching like especially younger women just be able to say, especially now when social media is so can be so toxic, when they're just say, I will continue to be myself in spite of the toxicity. So I want to ask you, especially as a female filmmaker, like I know the film industry is not easy, and so for like you have your own struggles as a filmmaker to deal with, but then also like your film is around a side of, I think, filmmaking also too, because they are making like, I obviously like social media and these TikTokers and Instagram people, like they're making like capsule films, and like for you as a filmmaker, like did you and Elsa have any discussions about just like being able to tell your stories as creatives? Like, did you have those kind of conversations?
Yes. I wouldn't say we've spoken too much about, I mean, I shared a lot about, I shared a lot about myself as a filmmaker and my prior work with Elsa. I think that, it's important to really gain trust especially from Elsa's side, because you're saying to someone, you tell my story, and you know what it's like as a director, then you've got control of the reins and the levers, and you got to really trust somebody. But so I did share a lot about my lens on the world as a filmmaker, my prior films. But for Elsa, I didn't ask her too much about the other films and things she's made, because it's all there. You know, that's what got me inspired and interested in her in the first place, because, you know, that's what I saw and discovered. And, you know, I feel like, you know, I followed her for a long time, sharing her videos, laughing at her videos, saving her videos before I actually reached out to her. And it's interesting because, you know, she is a videographer in her own right, because she's making these TikTok videos and these Instagram videos. And I do think that she could actually make a very successful comedy series. But I don't know what else she has in the pipe. And I know of one or two things her managers shared, but I don't think that I think it's also confidential that they're packaging. And but she's very creative.
Yeah.
She's extremely creative. And it was very important for me to use her videos and her footage in this film, because that's how she presents herself.
Yeah, you mentioned comedy series, and yeah, I can see her becoming someone like or doing going along a similar vein as like Issa Rae and like Quinta Bronson, because they got famous from like, you know, using social media and like YouTube to their advantage and just getting their thoughts and their opinions out there. But just like as you were speaking, I was just wondering, what was it about the time that you were filming her that's in the film that made these days the days you wanted to use? Like, was there anything special going on? Because like for this session with Lalu, was that pre-planned before you began filming, or was that an idea developed during the discussion process for filming?
Well, the initial idea was to show, it was about kind of 2 acts, not 3 acts. The initial idea was, what is Elsa like when no one's watching? So Elsa when no one's watching, and then we know that she chooses that to show the world on Instagram, but what is Elsa like out in the world? So we've got Elsa in her bedroom in her immediate capacity, and then who is Elsa in the world? You know, who's the Elsa that everybody sees? Obviously not on social media. And in order to do the latter, we reached out to people she knows in New York. You know, she's obviously connected with a huge amount of people through, most of those people actually are social media friends. I think like there was Lalu she'd met before, but a lot of them she'd formed these relationships with online. And I think Joe she'd hung out with before, but I think the 2 other females, she made an online friendship with them. And it was important for me that it was through seeing Elsa interact with people in her life and in her space. And she's just moved to America, to see that side of Elsa. So, you know, I asked Elsa, like, who do you call when you go to New York? She's actually based in LA. So, you know, she comes to New York for work and what have you. So I said, who do you call when you go to New York? And she mentioned the people who essentially interview her in the film. And then when she mentioned Lalu, because I obviously did my research on all these friends of hers, friends of hers, and she's actually closest to Lalu out of all the people that she meets up with. And I discovered that Lalu was a thought leader in enough, you know, he's a voice as well. I read his TED talk, I looked at his art, I saw how he could provide a thematic statement and, you know, source to these themes of identity. Because at its essence, the film is about identity, in my opinion. And it's very interesting if you see what it's been programmed alongside at Tribeca. I don't know if you've had a chance to watch the other films within the campus thematic bucket they've put it in.
I haven't seen all of them. I've seen some of the other shorts, like I've seen the Juneteenth shorts, and I've seen Hoop Dreams and stuff. And I know of Lalu. Like I don't know him, but when I didn't know his name or I didn't know his face, but as soon as he started talking about body painting, I'm like, I know who this is because I've seen his artwork in magazines. Like he's had like he's been featured in magazines, and his work has been featured in magazines. So I recognize that. So I just love that. Yeah, the film is about identity and it's about her identity, but I think it's also, I think it could be about identity for young women in society these days, because so much of the things that she talks about are things that many young women and older women experience too, like, you know, like just being able to find comfort in yourself and being confident. And like and I think the most vulnerable moment that she does talk about is where she talks about, again, going back to her family, where she was like, where she was like her family, and she said every time she thinks about a discussion with them, it breaks her heart. And there was something she said, I was like, I'm wondering what she was talking about, because she said, I want to look for the quote. She decided she's gonna stopping all of this. Yes. And I was wondering what she meant. Did she mean like stopping the social media work? Yeah. Or like just like going back and forth with her family, because it wasn't healthy for her emotionally.
She said she's referring to all of this being the posting, that the social media stuff, the projecting, the showing the world who she is. Because it got so painful for her that her family was just, you know, looking down upon it, that she said, I'm not going to do the social media stuff anymore. It's too painful, because of, not being, you know, having that reaction from them. But yeah, I think, you know, just back to where the film was programmed in terms of its thematic bucket at Tribeca, you know, it was programmed alongside 5 other films, and the theme is compass. And every single one of those films was about the price or the courage it takes to be who you really are. And actually, what was so wonderful about each film, because each film also showed the triumph at the same time, the reward of being being exactly who you are, and not being afraid to be, you know, who you are. So I was extremely humbled when I saw the other films. They're brilliant films that have been programmed alongside Elsa this year in Tribeca. Really, really high quality, high caliber films, all about identity.
And like, I know you have to get ready to wrap up now, but like going off of that, like for you as a filmmaker, what do you think is your identity as a filmmaker? Like how, like what has been solidified for you, like from the beginning of your career, but like I think especially working on this film, because so much of it is about finding who you are as a person. Like what is your identity as a filmmaker now?
You know, I'm very inspired by human beings and our wounds. We all have wounds, you know, we all carry stuff. We've all had to overcome things, and we're all trying to overcome things. We all have demons, we all have wounds, we all have baggage. And most of my films are around exploring what those wounds are, where they've come from, why they are there, but most importantly, how we transcend. And how we, you know, most of my films are stories of freedom, really, but freedom from ourselves, because we can chain ourselves and we can, you know, so I think that's very much my lens on the world. I'm fascinated with the human condition. I'm fascinated with human beings and psychology, and why we are the way we are, and why we do things, and how we overcome things. And I'm very driven by the intention to inspire. You know, I don't want to make a film that leaves someone, you know, feeling hopeless. I want to leave someone feeling hopeful. Oh, if she can do that, then I can do that. Oh, if he was able to, you know, get over this issue, then I can. Because, you know, films and characters and people, subjects in films, they hold up mirrors. because we see ourselves in the people we watch. It's human nature too. And those are the stories that I look for. And all of those stories are universal stories.
No, I think that's great. I think that's one of the reasons I love film so much, because I'm always able to find a way to relate to characters, even if they don't look like me, even if they're from places that I'm not from or I've never been. And documentaries, I think, are special in that way, especially like shorts. I'm always fascinated by shorts in particular, because we have such a limited time to get to know these people, but like we still get to know so much about them, you know. And like life is like that. Life can come and go, and in an instant. Like people move in and out of your lives in an instant, you know, like everything is for a season, and documentary shorts are kind of like that. They're for a season, and it's over and you move on. But so like for this film, and like for getting to know Elsa, like even if anyone who watches the film doesn't follow her career as a social media star, like they still get to know just who she is as a person in that short space of time. And the film is 15 minutes, but I think it kind of makes sense because so much of who the world has come to her is in like snippets, you know. It's like she makes these videos and then it's gone, and I think it's perfect. Like actually, like it's a short film that you chose to do this instead of a feature length.
Yes, I love that you say that. And I think it's interesting because you can be, you know, standing next to somebody in the line at the grocery store, and in 5 minutes you can feel like you know their whole story, because it's all about the connection that's made. But I also agree with you. I think this film was perfect for the short form platform. I mean, I'm sure that there's a feature in Elsa's story somewhere, but this was really about just showing that courage to show the world who you are when no one's watching, which I just hope young girls can see Elsa and do themselves.
No, I hope so too. She's very brave, because like she's like just doing what she does at such a young age and knowing who she is as a person at such a young age. Like that to me is brave. That's like very commendable. So thank you so much for making the film, and I hope that so many people get to see it and get to watch it, and that Elsa continues to prosper, and that you continue to have like a great career, like have a great time at the festival. And what is it? What do you have planned next? What would you like people to know about what you're working on next?
I have another film that's in kind of doing the festival circuit. It's called Coming Home. It's about a very different subject. It's around people who race pigeons. And I actually am in post on a film commissioned by Disney Plus, which is very exciting. So that's going to come out very soon. And I'm working on a feature, and I'm developing a series. So constantly looking for stories, constantly. It's the passion. It's my passion.
Yes. Thank you so much for speaking with me today, Julia. Have a great time, and I appreciate it.
Carolyn, I appreciate the interest, and thank you for taking the time to speak with me too.